This video is not sponsored. Well, it's sponsored by all of you who support me here. This is the Xperia One Mark 6. In my Xperia One Mark 5 review, I said that the Xperia was a phone for professionals who wanted a very capable camera phone as well as an additional tool to their toolkit. And because of that, the target audience for the phone was quite a narrow one. Even though it's early days, I can already tell that Sony made some big changes here. I think this phone will definitely appeal to a larger audience. It's certainly friendlier to use, but has Sony done enough here? I'm Alex and I do down-to-earth tech videos. Even though the size and the aspect ratio here now is very different from before, the design itself is not really a major departure from the previous Mark V. It is still very light and it's actually still quite comfortable to hold as well. I got this really nice case to go with it, this cream one, where is it? I'm gonna show you here. And even though they didn't have the color I wanted for the phone, I'm actually quite happy with this black version. The fingerprint scanner is still very accurate, it's placed exactly where you want it to be, and I actually set it up so that I have to press it because it can unlock accidentally sometimes when you don't want to, and the haptics on this phone, especially when you're typing, feels really good. Of course, we still have the physical shutter button on this phone, which is such a nice touch. You know, you've got half pressed for focus as well, and then a full press, just like you would have in a camera. I still forget sometimes that I've got this and I touch the screen to take the photo, but when I remember that I can use the shutter button, it's such a nice little reminder. Now the camera app, or apps I should say, the experience we had on the Xperia 5 did resemble a Sony camera, almost identical to my professional camera that I'm using right now. So for me as a Sony shooter, it was perfectly fine. You know, I got used to the menu really quickly, but that's gone now. Well, it's now in the Pro mode. It's way simpler now and much friendlier than before, which talks to the bit I said before in my previous video that, you know, this phone had a narrow target audience. This makes it easier to use now for more people. From a software perspective, this reminds me a little bit of the Pixel experience. The Pixel 8 Pro is the latest one that I've reviewed here, which is to say, it's pretty much stock Android. I did notice on the setup as well that there was less app from Sony themselves, you know, the bloatware that we used to call it, which is cool. They're still there, but it's optional, easy enough to ignore it when you're setting it up. And of course, when we talk about the Xperia, we still have the bonus added features, which I think are still refreshing to see in 2024. A headphone jack and an expandable storage thing here that you don't need any tool to remove. You know, it's that simple. I think you can go up to like 1.5 terabyte additional storage in here. So when people say to me, this is a really expensive phone, and I think in some markets they are prohibitively expensive. One could argue, hear me out, that this is actually insane value when you think about storage alone. To put it into context, you'd have to pay $1,600 for the 1 terabyte version of the iPhone. And it may take you a few months, if not a year, for you to actually need that storage. So you might be saving money by getting one of these, right? Just looking at storage alone. I know there are other aspects as well that, you know, there's the iOS versus Android. There's all of that to consider, but if you're only looking at, you know, value and storage, that's definitely something to think about. From a processor perspective, we now have a snappy Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is awesome to see. But more importantly, I think, you know, when you put a fast processor in these things, they usually tend to overheat. But for the first time on an Xperia phone, we have a vapor cooling chamber. To be honest with you, it did still get quite warm when I was using it, really busy with it, but nothing close to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, for example. When it first came out, I think Apple did something to minimize that overheating issue, but yeah, nothing close to that. Audio quality on this phone is, as expected, really good, but there is something here that you're probably not going to hear from a lot of the reviews out there. Sony has indeed upgraded the drivers in here and the headphone jack as well. I love how the audio seems to be, you know, firing out from the front of the phone instead of the sides. It does feel nice and balanced. Everything is perfectly fine from that aspect. And if you don't compare it to anything else, you'll be absolutely fine. You think, okay, this is a great sounding device. But I wouldn't be doing my job here if I didn't compare it to anything else. And look, I know audio can be subjective, and in this case, it's quite complex as well, but bear with me. When you're listening to music, something like Tidal or even Spotify, YouTube Music, it does sound amazing. From a loudness perspective, it's not as loud as the iPhone or the S24 Ultra, for example, but from a clarity perspective, to me, the Xperia does sound clearer on music apps. But when it comes to watching content, and it pains me to say this because I know, people work for months, if not years, to get a device to market. But I tried a few times because I thought, maybe I'm doing something wrong, right? It's not impossible for me, it's early days, but no, it's definitely just not as good as the iPhone or the S24 Ultra, full stop.
As above sits the stars, and below lies the sea. I give you you,
and you give me me.
You remember. May, is it really you?
Not only these devices are louder, which to me is not that important, but it's not just loudness. They did sound better to me. Just to be clear, this was just watching content on Netflix and Disney Plus, but I'm gonna try my best and give you, the best possible quality I can for you. But there's compression involved, there's obviously whatever you're listening to this audio from, but let's try anyway.
You wouldn't believe who I just saw. You wouldn't believe who I just saw.
Let me know what you thought. I do know this can be quite subjective anyway, and I wasn't using the best microphone setup for this either. I will do that in my full review. Of course, if you really want the best possible output from Sony, the beauty here is that you can get your expensive headphones, for example, and plug it in, which you can't do on any other phones right now.
I just wanna let you know, hope every day I need no other body. You don't need no other body.
Now, something that I'm really happy about and quite impressed by is the new display. There was one thing in the Mark V that I felt, I don't know, it was a little bit random, which was this auto brightness. During the day, sometimes you'd go out in the bright sunlight and the screen would dim, and at night when you wanted it to dim, it would all of a sudden go really bright. So the sensor on that display was a little bit off for me. Using it outdoors or indoors now is really pleasant. I haven't seen any issues there. And something I didn't really spend a lot of time doing on the Xperia 5 was actually watching content. I did, but it wasn't enough, right? But I was impressed by that 4K display, and I enjoyed that aspect ratio as well for watching content. I think it's perfect, right? Because you don't have to zoom in or have any black bars on it. And as I keep saying, it's early days, but with the Mark 6, to me anyway, Sony did come out swinging with this display again. This is why I tend to kind of sometimes ignore specs and benchmarks and these numbers, right? Because to my eyes, this display for watching content absolutely smokes the competition. As I mentioned earlier as well, we still have the creator mode option, which is the best for watching content as the creator intended. It's funny actually, because I mentioned this in my Xperia 5 review that I'm almost certain that this phone would appeal to a lot more people if the price was slightly lower and they made a couple of tweaks from a hardware perspective, like having an LTPO display or a more premium finish at the back. Yeah, the previous display was indeed a 4K display, so if you look at the numbers and pixels, we seem to, have got a downgrade because we now have a full HD plus OLED display. In real terms though, it does feel like a massive upgrade. I need a bit more time to test this fully, and I don't want to just now tell you exactly what I think just yet, because in a few seconds I will, but I want you to have a look for yourself. Just look at this footage and see what you think. Right, I honestly thought that the Xperia 1 Mark 6 had a brighter image and just more contrast as well, just sharper, better to look at. In the display settings, I've got it set to standard mode, but to auto turn on the creator mode when the app supports it. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm not sure which apps support it, and I'm not even sure what quality Netflix is streaming on. I think it's actually just full HD, it's not even 4K, and the same goes for Disney. But side by side, they're all set in the same way, and you can see for yourself how good they are. So even though we quote unquote lost on 4K, I really think we gained in variable refresh rate, which is better on the battery as well. But we also got a massive jump here in video quality alone. Just watching content, just like looking side by side, as you can see here. And I should mention that some of this perceived upgrade could be down to Sony's BRAVIA magic going on in here, the processing that they do. I'm not close enough to Sony. They don't even know I'm making this video, so it's hard for me to know for sure. Ignore that, I'll fix it. But I'll keep researching and I'll find out more for my next video. Talking of which, I have already started to share quite a bit on Instagram, lots of behind the scenes, lots of detailed stuff as I discover them. So if you're on Insta, give me a follow over there. That's Alex G Tech on Insta, and I'll make sure to answer any questions that you've got about this. In fact, you don't even need to go to Insta for that though. I can answer your comments here too. And in the same way that this video is entirely free of sponsors today, it's free for you to subscribe as well. Why is that happening? I'm only joking. Check the channel, make sure you like my content, but if you do, you'll be awesome to have you here. I do enjoy sometimes to make videos like this that are completely without any strings attached. I might just turn it off completely. I just went and bought the device and I'm kind of having fun with it and reporting back what I'm finding. It just looks like a red dot now. What about the cameras though? After all, this is the main point, right, when you buy an Xperia? And bear in mind that this is only my first impressions video, there's a lot more to come, but I have done a couple of day trips already with this phone, and so far, it's hard to just say I'm impressed, because I am more than impressed. But I have some thoughts as well. The first thing I noticed was the color of the photos. This is a strange one, it took me a while to figure this out. When you're looking through the viewfinder, out of the box without making any changes, the colors look extremely realistic, which, one could say is just boring. Very natural, very sharp as well. But when we open the photo on just a standard like work monitor, for example, the colors will look a little bit uninspiring. But don't panic just yet. The good news is that, like with many phones, you can apply a color profile to the photo, so when you take the photo, it's baked in there. I played around with the vivid profile, expecting it to be like too much and look a bit weird as well, but I was actually surprised at how natural it still looks even though it's in vivid. I think for a lot of people that will be my recommendation, but for the pros out there, and I mean the people who use this phone almost as a stepgap between their main camera and something else, I would probably do what I ended up doing, which is just shooting RAW and JPEG. So at least you have that freedom, in Lightroom or whatever, to edit the photo to your liking or apply your color profiles. Now, I should mention that when I say uninspiring, I just want to be clear, I've been using the S24 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max as well for photos and videos, and they all behave a little bit differently, but from a color perspective, those devices are very for mass consumption, and they are, in my opinion, almost too unrealistic sometimes, but they do look nice. I think they're designed to, just add a bit more color to the shots by default, because, it's just nice. I guess it's a preference thing as well, and you can't really go wrong these days with any of these phones, to be honest. But if you're looking for the most realistic result straight out of the camera, this gives you that. The other thing that you'll notice is straight away, at least I did, is the quality of the telephoto lens, the zoom. Is an 85 to 170mm equivalent lens, and what caught my eyes was actually the transition between the lenses. There's a tiny jump, I think it's on the last transition to the telephoto lens, very similar to how the iPhone does it. It's very smooth between the first jump, and then in the last one there's a tiny jolt in there. But I think this is even better than the iPhone because it's covering a lot more ground, right? It's really impressive what it's doing. I managed to by accident get this really cool effect as well from the train. I was just doing this sort of zooming in as the train is moving, so you get this weird parallax effect. I don't know. There's quite some creative things that you can do with that. I also noticed that there's a slight issue. It happened twice in one day, so I'm thinking maybe it's a bug in here, but I also realized it's happening near lots of people, so I think it's not an issue. It's just the fact that the camera is so good at doing recognizing faces now, but sometimes you don't want that. You can turn that off though, there's a setting for it. It's just something to be aware if you're kind of trying to take a photo and there's people between the phone and your subject. The autofocus sensitivity here is amazing, and you will pick up those faces and sometimes not focus on what you wanted to focus. Of course, you can still do manual touches to focus, but just be aware of that. The other thing you can do is half press it and it will show you, those little green squares where the focus is. I'll do a proper comparison video between all of these devices and go deeper into all the different modes and, test low light, which is something that wasn't the greatest with the Mark V, especially in video. But as you can see here, there's some interesting results already. And I've been saying this for a while now. I'm not sure what Samsung did here with the S24 Ultra recently. I'm really struggling right now to manage the highlights. So it's when you're taking a portrait or photos of anything that's, you know, in the shadows and there's something in the background that's too bright. It's a very common thing, right, to take photos of someone outside. From a point and shoot perspective, in terms of managing the highlights, the iPhone, out of this three anyway, does outperform everything. It's not enough for me personally to go back and exclusively use the iPhone because, you know, it's not enough really. But in this one aspect, the iPhone is doing a much better job, as you can see here. The only other phone that seems to be doing a great job in this aspect is actually the little brother of the S24 Ultra, the S24 Plus, with the Exynos chipset no less, right? Anyhow, way more content to come on that. And remember to check me out on Insta because yeah, I'll be sharing lots of details in there as well as they come. Now, when it comes to 4K video, I'm smiling because yeah, I'm so happy with it. It's so good. Very stable, as you'd expect anyway, right? But very natural looking and sharp, very clean in a very Sony way. I'm not sure I'm doing a good job at explaining how good this is, but it's just not over sharpened like, you know, sometimes you get in certain smartphone videos. I can't emphasize this enough. I know it's only been a few days, but I will go as far as saying I do prefer the video quality on the Xperia 1 Mark 6 above everything else that I reviewed this year. Just like it was with the Xperia 1 Mark 5, when it came to 4K 60 standard video, it was better than the iPhone. So that at least has been consistent from Sony. I can tell that, you know, whatever they're doing with the Zeiss lens and the TX model in here, the sensor, I think it's the same sensor as before, but their secret sauce that they've got in here is doing an amazing job in video. Even the front-facing camera, check this out.
It's a cloudy day today, but as you can see, there's details behind me in the clouds, which is great to see. I'm not sure I'd get this with the iPhone or even with the S24 Ultra. It's really good to see here. I mean, I'm underexposed a little bit, but for a front-facing camera, a 4K 60, I'm impressed.
A little word of caution though, I have not tested this in low light conditions and I haven't actually tried the Pro mode fully yet. So, you know, there could be a massive issue in here that I haven't discovered yet, so just be careful. Don't take this review as the de facto, you know, oh my gosh, this phone is the best thing since sliced bread. It may well be, but I need more time. Now there's one cool thing as well here, which is the bokeh mode, aka portrait mode. Is really excellent, probably the best portrait mode. It's actually not fair, I don't think, to compare this with portrait mode or even call it that, because it is actually doing a little bit more, in my view anyway, than just adding a little bit of blur to the background. It does make the subject really pop in the shots, but in a really natural way that, my gosh, if we were to put this side by side with a real camera, I think we would struggle to tell which one is which. I really enjoyed using the 120 FPS mode again on this phone. And again, I appreciated how easy the camera controls are here. I won't go into gaming, productivity aspects today or the lack of visible AI features, but I will say this. One of the questions I had actually for my previous Mark 5 review was whether or not the Mark 6 would come with some sort of AI, you know, this fancy AI features that everyone seems to be bringing to their devices now. Maybe Sony, I don't know, would have felt forced to bring those features in to stay relevant. On the other hand, even though I enjoy those features on the S24 Ultra, Galaxy AI, there's a lot of things in there that are not gimmicks. I do use them pretty much on a daily basis. I didn't really miss those features on the Xperia because when I'm using the Xperia, rightly or wrongly, right, my brain just goes into a different mode. I'm more interested in what I can do from a camera perspective, you know, videos and photos. And here's the point about AI. In the camera itself, which is where it matters to me when it comes to the Xperia, Sony has indeed put a lot of AI tech behind it. There's loads of features in here like human and animal eye recognition, depth estimation, and a few other things as well, like predicting things, predicting your movements. There's a lot of stuff in here that I'm still learning about. Not even my professional cameras here in the studio have these features. The main question that I had though from my Xperia 5 review and the main question that I had from this video was whether or not Sony had done enough now to make this a more consumer-friendly device. And to me at least, they've done just that, whilst giving us some decent upgrades as well. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you soon, hopefully in the follow-up review. See you soon.